Joanna, thank you so much. What an amazing story, and I will never wear pom-poms again. Okay, guys, next we have the Leadership Power Panel. This is something I'm beyond excited to hear from. I'd like to invite Jane Waterhouse to introduce our guests. Jane is from Slingshot, she's the Managing Director. We've got 4 of the most powerful and respected leaders in Australia who we're going to hear from now about how indies can get further faster. Jane, over to you.
Okay, so 2025, here we are. It's started with a bang. Kind of feels already like November to me. Some unexpected things going on around us. I would love to hear from, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear from you about any significant trend that you're seeing. I'm going to start with you, Matt, that you're seeing from a global or local point of view that is of interest to this audience.
Yep, well... Hello? Yeah, so global trends, I think we're seeing from audiences, probably first, is there's a few trends. I think what we're seeing is, I suppose on the publishing side of the business, a lot more sort of people digging into sort of a bit more long-form journalism than we've had before. A lot maybe to do with Trump, etc., coming through. There's a lot of geopolitical stuff going on at the moment, so there seems to be on that hand, quite a lot of work on that, and our news and our TV business is going very well there as well. So we're seeing engagement in that area, but we're also then seeing a lot of engagement continuing, but probably growing massively on the sort of escapism, reality stuff that's going on, especially like maths, etc., is like a juggernaut at the moment. So you're sort of getting these two things that are happening. I think what we're sort of noticing as well is the bits in the middle are a bit soft, but those areas around people probably understanding news a little bit more, taking a bit more interest in that, and this, and then the reality of getting away from it, etc., seems to be working for us.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I heard Saoirse Ronan actually talking about maths being her favourite show, and she was telling the world about that. She's an Irish actress, for anyone who doesn't know. She was
good on her.
Yeah, loves it. Anything from you? What would you...
Maybe just touching on a few macro themes, and happy to dive back into any of these. Definitely the impact of search and social referrals is dropping, not just for media, but for all businesses. I think that some of the changes that Meta have made around political content is definitely helping media companies, so we've seen a lift in those areas. I have to mention the AI word, but no doubt we'll come back to that as well.
Yep.
I think another, I suppose, more macro trend is the walled gardens. And so, are we going to end up in a search zero position? And so the Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, walled gardens, that you'd be stuck into those ecosystems and breaking into them, and also then therefore audiences breaking out become far more challenging as they're really, I suppose, with both their data and their product suite, making it far more attractive to be part of one, maybe two, but not all 4, for the majority of the population. I think the other, I suppose post-Trump, the slump that we did see a bump for a period there, but the slump is already occurring, and the impact of around the world around DE&I, nationalism. I think young males as a demographic is definitely behaving differently as well.
Yeah.
What I'd call the pandemic of loneliness, of people working alone, socialising with their thumbs, not their tongues. These are kind of trends that we're all kind of trying to deal with in terms of storytelling and media. But they're probably high-level few thoughts, which I'm happy to come back to.
Yeah, we might come back to some of those. Thanks. Natalie?
I think I'll build on what Matt was saying around wanting the kind of light and shade. So our audience wants to get kind of top line, here's a third thought around what's going on from a news perspective and how does that impact me. But then they desperately want escapism. We love maths at Mamamia because it does huge numbers for us. And so you see that you've got audiences going, tell me what's going on overseas, but I only want that for a couple of minutes, and then I just want to dig back down into what's going on in maths. What are the best jeans to wear? What sneakers should I be buying? So you've got this kind of light and shade that as a publisher we have to make sure, And then from a social perspective, obviously there's some big changes happening there. We're still seeing enormous traffic coming from those platforms, which is great, awesome for us, but obviously big changes coming, and then what that means will be an interesting space for all of us.
Does Matt pay you for all your maths content?
No, he doesn't
Maybe.
actually.
He doesn't pay us
That's
either.
a great conversation. Yeah,
Okay, there's no
we should
fighting.
send a bill.
You turned up late. There's no fighting, all right?
I think I should charge you for it, let alone get paid for it.
Got a yellow card already.
Yeah, I'll build on the escapism theme. I think from a pure audio perspective, people are tired, and there's a lot of bad news in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and certainly what we're seeing is that, and around the world, audio is probably being seen as where people can go and have a friend, connect with somebody that they've listened to for a long time, or content they want to hear about. And I think that sense of connection is people are desperately looking for a way to find some good news stories and what's happening in the world, and share like entertainment and like pieces. So we're definitely seeing that. I think, hitting home more to this audience probably is the trend, I think, around consolidation from an agency perspective, I think is going to be something that will be very interesting to watch. And probably, with that, we all know with consolidation comes a better way to work, if you like, or efficiencies. And I think that probably feeds well for the local market in terms of what could be done. Because if there's connection from an audience to media companies, there's definitely a connection from clients to agencies as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. And efficiency's probably a good segue into AI, which you touched on before, Michael. DeepSeek's sort of going to democratise AI. There's definitely efficiencies for all of us. I'm sure the audience would love to hear how you are using AI in your own businesses and whether it is driving efficiencies for you.
Yeah. Look, what to say is there are some efficiencies coming through. I wouldn't say we're being as strategic as we could be with AI at this point in time. Everybody's using AI in the organisation, pretty much. So there's a lot of trial and working through. We're sort of now trying to work through, how do we use it? There's ways we are using it in the way we're using our content, for example, our captioning and all the stuff we do around mini matches, all that sort of stuff is all AI generated. So there's a lot of bits going on. I think we sort of have three areas, but I don't think there's massive efficiency coming through. The first one is around how do we talk about content maximisation or optimisation. So with the platforms we've had, how do we push content across our platforms? And we are starting to do that with, we've got newsreaders that a newsreader will go through their script and that ends up on 3 of our platforms, whether it be audio or the TV or into digital, etc. So that's happening. So you're sort of producing something and placing it 4 times. So there's stuff happening there, this content optimisation, maximisation. I think we're touching on that at the moment in the organisation. A lot of work doing around product and tech around this from an AI point of view, personalisation. How do people want to take content? Do they want to see it through video? Do you want to hear it through audio? Do you want to read it, etc.? And you can do all of that now with our different content that we produce in different formats. So a lot on product and tech, and then there's the efficiencies. And I think we're at probably working on the first 2, the second not so much at this point in time, but there's no doubt it will come through and there'll be efficiencies coming to the organisation through it.
In that third stage,
Yep.
Nat?
Did you want to go? For us, we've seen enormous efficiencies in every department that is touching it. So we've got a quarterly theme around AI, and that's about empowering our team, making them feel like they can use it, because often content people get a little bit funny about it, because what we don't want it to be is that it's going to replace jobs. Absolutely not. What it's going to do is take away some of the heavy burden and administration tasks when it comes to research for podcasts, when it's fact checking, when it's getting ready for one of our team to talk to an author about their books. So it's saved enormous amounts of time there. Personally, it's saving me about 4 hours a week. We're actually tracking it because we've got a pretty big, lofty goal to go. We want to save however many hours across the whole business. Anywhere from people and culture, so how to have a performance management meeting, how to prepare for a job interview. There's so many things you can do on it, but it's also incredibly unsafe. So we've created our own space. We've got our own GPT, and their name is May, and May talks like our talent would talk. It's got 17 years of content in there. It's basically like its own large language model, and it has been phenomenal. what I would say is it actually gets a little bit frustrating because there's so many things we want to do that it actually can't do yet. And we're using Perplexity, we're using ChatGPT, Claude, ImageFX, we're using all of them. We got a consultant in to help us kind of navigate through and make sure that we've got the right safety mechanisms in there, because we did do a little test first and it was bringing up anything from confidential information about individuals to just stuff that you don't want anyone to be able to just access freely. So we're able to kind of nail that down first, but now everyone's using it. It's a huge transformation in the business, but there's still so much more to come. It's like once you get to one point, there's something else you can do. There's new, ChatGPT just launched the O3, where you can get more agents working for you. There's so many things you can do. It's actually a little bit overwhelming, and I'm obviously very excited about it because I can't stop talking about it, so I'll stop now.
But you're in the pool, you're doing it. You're doing the laps. Once you're in there, you will keep going. And
We did a session with our team called AI for Basic Bitches.
Nice.
So if anyone wants it, I'll send it to you. But it's just a really good way to get people to just understand the tools, use cases, examples, and just remove some of the fear that's there and just try and get it into the everyday.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants it, reach out and I'll shoot it through.
Yeah. Michael.
Yeah, maybe just 3 stats just to keep in mind. First of all, there was some research last year that came out and identified that Australia is the most AI-addicted country in the world. There were 32 billion searches on Gemini and ChatGPT last year. Per capita, we're the highest in the world, Singapore 2, Switzerland 3, Ukraine 4. The surprising stat behind that, though, is we are 4 times more likely than the number 2 to be using it. So your audiences, your clients, their clients are using AI. The next stat is that 95% of roles today should be using AI. And the last one I just wanted to reference is that I looked this up this morning using Perplexity, it was, that who should you employ for AI skills? Last year, 44% of males used AI tools in the workplace, only 21% of females. 70% of the people you employ for AI skills should be a male, is what they will tell you. That's a gender gap we don't want to see emerge. So I'd really encourage all your teams to be using it. How we're using it, again, that 95% rule. We've got a sandbox and a collab with OpenAI, so we've launched News GPT, which aggregates a lot of the trusted sources that we have. So that's a daily tool that we have across the company. We get about 500,000 comments a week on our different sites. 80% of those now are passed straight through to publish, which used to have to be legaled and go through human hands, which you wouldn't have been able to. And comments and opinion from other users are a key point. On the client side, for all of you, is that Intent Connect, our data product, the data matching and building your own profiles will be assisted by AI. The attribution and being able to improve those campaigns dynamically, there's an AI bot there to assist you with that. And there are other, and particularly in content, what is the right content match and a particular genre that you should be matching your, marketing and messaging and content through with our own content. And so that's probably our unique point on data, is that how can you understand what our audiences are consuming in terms of where their mindsets are, what they're being driven by, what is trending in Australia on Australian content today, and AI will assist you with that.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
We have a partnership with a US company called iHeart. So our digital audio platform is iHeartRadio. And they spend about $50 million US dollars a year CapEx, roadmap development, product development. And what I saw a couple of weeks ago in terms of what the plan is for 25 was pretty frightening in terms of the level of speed at which they advance the roadmap and all those things we've talked around: personalization, attribution, measurement. I can 10 minutes. I could give you a radio station that's fully AI automated, and it would have the music picked for whatever genre you want. It would have the news inserted. It would be able to schedule the ads. But I'll go back to what I said at the start. I think we've got to be careful that we don't lose sight of the fact of what makes each of our mediums really good. And that is that element of human interaction. And I'll give you one quick story, if that's okay.
Love an Irish story.
About 12 months ago in Ballarat, we had our station manager down there. The local IGA manager rang in and said, there's a car in the car park, and there's a grandmother, a mother, and a 4-year-old daughter in the car. They're sleeping there, wearing shorts and t-shirt, middle of winter. There's anything you could do. We cut programming straight away. And within 30 minutes, we had food, accommodation, shelter, toys, for the kids. And that store manager said that's the beauty of what local media can do, local radio can do, is that we can jump on things straight away. And I'd hate us in all the excitement of AI and what we can do and where we can go to lose sight of the localism and connection that we all have as media businesses, and that's something that's very important.
Yeah, really good point. I just want to talk a little bit about, we're living in a media environment that's all about measuring everything, and market mix modelling, certainly for us as an agency, has come up more and more, and any sort of media mix modelling. So I just wondered, when it comes to what you can do to help with the indie agencies, to get to the audiences in terms of your data offerings in what's an incredibly fragmented environment at the moment. What have you got that you could help that maybe we don't have? Let's.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks.
We had a fantastic conference that the industry body of radio did, CRA did last week, and it talked to a lot of those points. And really, what we've got to remember when you're thinking about audio is high frequency and maintaining presence. The research that came through, and it's on the CRA website, and certainly we'll be rolling it out to all the agencies, is that the more consistent you are in your messaging, both from a sonic ID perspective, from a frequency perspective, and staying on in terms of your marketing spend, the much better cut through that you have. And I think what clients sometimes are at risk of doing is either chasing social all the time, and I'm sure there's plenty of feedback in terms of how effective that is, but know your audience, know your communication objectives, and be as consistent as possible. And certainly from an audio perspective, maintaining that spend is really the best way to cut through in terms of overall messages.
Great.
We launched a tool last year called the Daily Dial, and what that does is it pulls in audience data, it pulls in sentiment, it pulls in mindset that anyone can access, and what that does is it helps agencies and clients be able to really connect in with audiences at the right time with the right sort of messaging. You know, you can get all sorts of data from different social platforms, but when you're talking mindset and you're talking that feedback loop that we have, because we have millions of people on our social platforms that are communicating with us every day. We see what they're doing on the website, what are they interested in at the moment, what's going to hit. And so being able to use that data will actually give you a massive competitive edge. The indies, I would say, once we launched the indies have definitely picked it up a lot more than what the holdcos have. So 10 points for indies. But if you are looking at a pitch, if you're just trying to get deeper consumer insights, no one knows their audiences better than a publisher does, because we know what works, we know what they're interested in. So lean on us more, because if we can make sure that the content that you're surfacing with us is relevant and it's going to add to their experience when they're on site, they're listening to podcasts, they're in that social environment, then that's going to make it stickier too. So we need to work together.
Great. Michael?
Similar to others, Intent Connect, which is our data product, I hope that you're all very familiar with it. It is self-serve, so I'd encourage you to jump on that if you don't. And not just matching I suppose our data, but matching it to your data as well, to ensure that your customer knowledge is also brought into what we also know about your customers. We often talk about the right place, the right time, but the right message would be the other key aspect that I'd encourage you to just think through. We can work with you on ensuring that message is placed in the right place, but also testing that message. It's about having it earned, not just bought, I think is a key aspect to, I suppose, a successful campaign. I think the last comment I'd make is that I think the best marketers and the best agencies are ones that build campaigns, not just particular tactics. And that increasingly that's what we're trying to maybe work with you on, is what is your long-term goals, not just the short-term hit. And so that how can we help you build those campaigns that are ever, I suppose going to continue to build the business far beyond the coming week and the coming month.
Great.
Yeah, no, so I'll echo what the rest of the guys have said. I'd say, at Nine, with the platforms we have, we've done a lot of work over our data platform over the last couple of years, and we've now got it together, across Nine now, Stan, the publishing assets, domain, etc. We've got 22 million uniques at the moment, and we have such rich data on them. We have the 9 tribes through the TV stuff we do, but the targeting now we can do I think for the independents here in the local market is fantastic. Some stats we have now starting to use this in earnest. Things like just using our publishing business to drive our TV business. You know, the Melbourne Cup, for example, we looked at all the people over the last year that had sort of looked at horse racing or looked at fashion, and then targeted them with 9 Now, and that was a massive uplift in growth in there. Just recently, the AO, for example, we went through all of the publishing. I think there was 17,000 people that had looked at tennis, read about tennis, but never logged on to 9 Now. You target those through, and we had about 60 or 70,000 new people coming to 9 Now because of it. So the data we have now is really rich. There's the full funnel marketing we've got, obviously, and some of the content. What I would say is, you know, the premium content that we're all doing here is huge. Maths. If you want to hit numbers, we're doing a million through every night just on the BVOD side of the business, right? So we're doing 2.5 million, doing a million BVOD. All the data we have on there is very rich and what can be used. So I think this is the biggest drive. One of the biggest drive from us from a strategic point of view is across data and premium content. Those are probably 2 things we're pushing. And that, the way we see trying to go up against the globals, is a way to defend of trusted brand. So we've all got trusted brands in the marketplace. Premium content, understand the local. We all look at news through there as well. It's really important, and to partner for insights and real quality engagement from audiences. And we're not talking old audiences, we're talking young audiences now. The Olympics had 25% of the viewers were under 25 years of age. Maths, over 50% at 16 to 39. These are young audiences, right? Okay? People say the old audiences out there. We've all got very young audiences. And I think that's a misconception that people need to sort of start looking at and really lean in, because we want to partner with people, like-minded people that can work on the data from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel across all genres through their own age groups.
Jen, I'd just add to something that Michael said there. I mean, I don't think there's anybody on the panel who would be hugely favoured towards any of the big tech. And I think, you know, to our point around local media and the protection of local media and the sustainability of local media, all working together actually is really important as we take on. And that means from a regulatory perspective, from an ease of trading perspective, whatever we can. And it's, again, Lizzie Young, I think, is in the audience from CRA. She's on later on. But, you know, the radio industry, I think, is doing a really good job coming together with our data product, particularly. And we're launching Audio ID, which means that, you know, in digital streaming of radio, we're using the same measurement, we're using the same industry, we're using the same tools to be able to make it easier to trade in. But the more we can do as local industry and local media is really important as tech takes over. And that's probably, I keep coming back to local media and the power of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You touched on it before with regards to, so, you know, data's one thing, it gets us, you know, a map of some sort, but it's the content and the creativity and the innovation that, you know, particularly your editors, you know, are responsible for developing that. What are you seeing in terms of any content trends, audience trends? I mean, you've talked now about younger audiences, which I think is we know is a misconception when it comes to particularly total TV. Anything else? Any other insights around audiences?
I mean, look, I think if you create premium content coming through, and local content really resonates as well, premium content, and you put it through. I mean, we are just seeing year-on-year audience growth going through, and it's really strong. The tennis really strong. The maths, keep saying sorry, is strong through there. But any of that type of sort of content that's really premium content, the audiences will find it. They know it's that you know they want to do it, and they'll engage with it over long periods of time. So there's trends around that. We talked about some of the trends earlier, but I think it is really you know from what we're seeing is a point of view of just making sure that real good quality premium content is working.
Right.
And that's what we'll continue to invest in that.
I think, Michael, when we spoke earlier, you spoke about the long-form content, but also in your book business that you're seeing some trends that I thought were fascinating.
Yeah, I can start with that. So definitely people looking for purpose. We've got HarperCollins is a News Corp company. We get 10+% growth every year for the past 5 years in our religious publishing book division. We've got 2 hubs in the US that publish new religion, but it's all around purpose and finding connection. So that would be one area that people are trying to find personal relevance in an area that they feel a bit lost. I mentioned that the pandemic of loneliness. Definitely anything about relationships is trending high at the moment. I woke up this morning and read the UK papers, as I always do. The number of reviews about Bridget Jones' movie around, but it's the diet that she took. It's younger men. It's lost relationships. That is trending every aspect of relationship. First person reflections. People who are trying to relive what they've seen others do. That's a piece. The creator sphere is definitely trending in the US as opposed to influencers. So the Joe Rogans and the people are turning to those creators who are developing their own brands, who are definitely separate from influencers. On sport, we're a country of fanatics when it comes to sport, but too often we speak to those fanatics, don't think to the groups that are further up the funnel, being fans and followers. So we're increasingly covering lives, not live. In fact, podcasts in the US are going to, on a week-to-week basis, pass live sport. There are more people who will watch sports docos in the coming year, and this will pass it this year, than have watched catch-up sport. And think of sprint in around the Olympics, think of what's the drive to survive, and the audiences that they're all followers who maybe have not seen actually an event live or watched it live. So that's just another possible insight. And then the crossover of genres. Again, heading into the Olympics last year, Epicure magazine in the US, which is high-end food and travel, did their first sports edition. And so you're seeing a lot of crossover of genres as people search for that experience. And they're prepared to pay big money for something which they feel is enriching them. And it's not the destination, it's not the event, it's that experience and that intrinsic value that they get from from being there and being in the moment.
Fascinating.
I heard you were in here last night with popcorn watching Bridget Jones' Diary. Anyway.
Kieran can't tell you anything.
The music is one of the great motivators and escapism for people. And sometimes when we talk about music in these forms, people automatically think of Spotify. And the encouraging thing is that radio around the world is far more influential in people's choice of music and listening to music than Spotify has. Small stat, Sabrina Carpenter was the most downloaded song on Spotify last year, about 1.6 billion. In the UK alone, it was 2.1 billion. So around the world, radio actually gets more exposure for music than Spotify in about 3 to 4 times. So from our perspective, being able to connect with people through music is really important. The other point I'd say is that our talent actually are the original influencers. If you think about where radio DJs and announcers came from all those years ago, they informed people, they educated people, they guided people to other areas. And we can see it now through our data, through iHeart, that when one of our talent talks about a particular topic or a particular podcast that we have or drives to a particular genre or a particular event, we can track and see that the power they have to drive people to call to action is very, very high. Agree with Michael in terms of all the genres, but actually using the assets to drive more content is what we're working very hard on.
Great.
Yeah.
Sure, there's some.
I would build on that.
Yeah.
You both pointed out 2 things that are heavily driven by women, and seeing women driving economies now, whether it's the Stanley Cup, whether it's Taylor Swift concerts, Beyonce. I heard tickets were like $6,000 US to get to a Beyonce concert. Kind of opt out when it gets to that high. But what we're seeing is you've got a real division between men and women when it comes to content, and like trying to go mass with messaging now is going to get harder and harder. Yes, you need bulk eyeballs and ear holes. Doesn't sound as good, but
Airtime is better. Yeah.
But what you need to do is make sure that you're resonating in those platforms. So if you want to connect with all people, you need a strategy that goes all people, but then it also goes women and it also goes men, which is hard, right? It's hard for you guys. So that's why, lean on us for data, lean on us for insights. We know what's going to be next. We knew Belle Gibson was going to be huge. We resurfaced heaps of our content on that. We've got every podcast talking about it. We had a group get together and go, okay, how are we going to tackle this? I loved what Nine did in terms of on, was it Monday night, straight after Married at First Sight? Gosh, come on. I need to increase my CPMs for maths. But But when we look at it, it's like, how do you make sure you're connecting in those ways? Just putting out a 28x5 and hoping that everyone sees it, it doesn't work anymore. People aren't looking at content like that, and advertising needs to really pop and be part of the content. So how do you balance that? Really hard. I feel sorry for everyone in this room. But one thing that would help you a lot is if you engaged us further up the funnel in terms of your processes and use us to help generate content together.
Yep, totally agree. And we do that for that very reason. Okay, I'm going to touch on a topic that we've seen be raised around the world with this sort of sunsetting of DE&I initiatives with Meta and McDonald's, Accenture, and the list goes on. I'm really interested to hear whether you think there's a sort of waning of wokeness in your own worlds. And Nat, you might like to start with that.
I've got a few opinions on it. Two things. So firstly, how can anyone run a business when you just hire more people that are like you? Like, gone are the days when you can sit in a boardroom with every person looking the same, sometimes having the same name, and it's not about making sure that you've got quotas or anything like that, but when you are hiring people, having a DE&I process and what you're like, having a target even, actually holds people a little bit more accountable to what they're doing, and that you're bringing different people into the boardroom for an interview for a new job. That's the first thing. If you're running a media company now and you don't have people in the business who have worked in digital publishing, have worked for TikTok, have worked for Amazon, have worked for all those businesses, you've got 5 years left, because what they're doing in every other business, it is far surpassing what traditional media is able to do. And so I think that will hurt. People pulling out DE&I policies is going to hurt that. Unfortunately, that means that will probably hit women harder and it will hit minorities harder. It won't hit men harder, because that's who we're probably being penalised on the other side of the fence, because it was that if you were a middle-aged man, that it was harder to get a job than it was for a woman, because people had those policies in place. So you can't win either way, but by taking policies out, what it means is that people are going to default back to, not everybody, but a lot of people will, job for my mate, or that person's going to be easier, that person doesn't have to run home and look after a child, and those kind of, that bias that's in there is going to come to the surface again. So I think it's scary, but I don't think Australia's going to go that way, by the way. I don't think that we're going to do that. So all power to Australia.
Michael?
Yeah, maybe just to put some context to what's happening in America, and being dual listed, we get an insight. The number of lawsuits that are happening in America due to diversity quotas is shocking. Amazon are being sued for, they offer $10,000 bounties for Hispanic or black drivers and delivery. So there's a class action. The state of Illinois is suing IBM for having quotas. So every company in the US, boards are running quickly to scrap their DE&I wording in their policies and their quotas. Of course, there is a legal thunderstorm that's happening there that doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
So I don't want to kind of say it's a world trend. I'd say it's potentially a US trend. I agree with that. But groupthink is the death of any company. And so diversity of thinking, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of experience becomes really important in any organisation. The pendulum swung too far one way, it's maybe swinging too far the other way. What does this mean potentially for marketing and for media? I think we have seen in Australia in recent years that there have been companies try to tag and align themselves to particular causes, which have caused a cancel culture style pushback. What we're seeing a lot more now is more community advocacy, and that companies wanting to actually have an impact rather than just align to someone else's cause. And that's where I feel that you're going to see a lot more change by Australian companies, is that when they can own and make an impact on the communities they serve, rather than align to someone else's mission, that's where they're going to have greater impact. And that is, I think, a rebalance that we're seeing through the DE&I and the US.
Interesting.
We don't have quotas, but I agree absolutely what Nat said in terms of diversity of thinking and having different perspectives around all parts of our business. At the end of the day, we're a small business as well, and having quotas sometimes means that you maybe are not hiring the best people, and that is a challenge, because at the end of the day, there's a great phrase: if you want to be a king or queen, put king and queens around you and hire the best people. But the best people isn't necessarily the smartest. It's those who brings the absolute perspective of what you want in your business and what that role is about. And I think the onus is on us as business owners to be very clear about the roles that we're putting in and the type of people that we want to fill that roles. We don't have quotas across the board, but what we have worked very hard on is training our managers in a constructive culture format when they're hiring to think of the other possibilities in the list rather than just the top of the list of a CV or something like that. So I like to think that, you know, we have made great progress in the world. I hope we don't go back to the way it was a long time ago. I don't think we will. I think Australia is far too educated and progressive for that to happen. But equally, you know, having quotas is something that I think has hamstrung some businesses across the way.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Matt.
so I'll echo what, I don't want to say everything else that's just been said, so I'll echo that. I think, you know, we're not changing our policies around DEI. I think it's really clear that, you know, you need diversity in your organisation, different skills, beliefs, genders, etc. around you. If you do that, I think we're pretty pragmatic as leaders. You have to have those for the best outcomes of the business. There needs to be merit-based, though, of people getting roles, but you look to try and get those skills, beliefs that are different around you is really important. So, no, I don't think it changes. You know, the US is obviously a strong platform of change there going on, but I think we'll continue down the path we're on.
Sort of related, I'm sure a lot of people here would like to get your thoughts on work from home, work from office. It's, you know, the long journey that we're all on. Where are you at on that journey?
Yeah, so that's a good one. It's a tricky one. Look, I think where we're at, we have in our organisation a policy where it's slightly different depending on which areas we have. So obviously you're in operations, news, business, etc. You're 24/7, so that, you know, we have people in the office all the time there. We have certain functional areas that don't, and we leave it to the leaders to decide what they do. What I would say is we're going through pretty well publicised cultural transformation in our business at the moment, and we do feel that it's good to make sure we have the collaboration and people and time together. And hence we like to encourage people to be in the office with us as we go through that transformation. So I think that's really critical, and I think when you do that, you spark off conversations, etc. We talked about AI, how good it is. We're all using AI. We'll continue to use it, but there's all this creativity. We're a media company, we're entertainment businesses. You have to have creativity. You have to have collaboration. And I think we encourage people to work together closely all the time.
And perhaps AI will give more opportunity for that too, more time together. Michael?
Hey, we introduced hybrid working pre-pandemic, so we've always had evolving policies in place, and different parts of the business have always had different work routines and different practices, so one size does not fit all. But for example, I think if you've been in an organisation for under 12 months, under 2 years, you need to understand the culture, you need to understand colleagues, you need to understand how that organisation works. That's different if you've been there for 30 years. I think different, our policy is 3+ days a week, maybe just building on what Matt says. The big issue I see in our organisation, but also speaking to other leaders, is that adherence to the policy. Is you can state what your policy is, but if others just decide the weather's changed today or there's a train strike on and therefore I'm not going to actually adhere to the policy, so we need leaders to step up and say, hang on, these are the moments where it does matter to come to the office, it does matter to work as teams, it does work and mean that you do need mentoring, but the best ideas will come from that teamwork, which is often in person, and that I think that is probably where I'm hearing frustration. Is the people who like the policy but don't necessarily adhere to it. But I think blended and hybrid working is for some of our journalists, they do their best work when they don't have an office buzzing around them, and for our sales teams, don't come in if you're going to be out, which is where I want you speaking to clients all day. So not one size fits all.
Got it.
I'm a big believer in everyone coming together. Like, look, you've got a full room here. Why didn't everyone just live stream? Because you're going to learn better. You're going to network with people when you're there together as individuals. I think that for different roles, there's different rules that need to apply. I can't do my job from home 5 days a week, so I wouldn't do it. And one big challenge I see is that there are certain roles where productivity is impacted when they're not with other people. So whether that's creativity, coming up with new ideas, new content ideas, from a sales perspective, just calling someone versus going and seeing them face to face, very different. So I think that it can't just be about what's most convenient for individuals. And that's hard for people to hear because they're like, but I want to go to the gym on a Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock and then start my day at 9:30. Well, that doesn't work for businesses. Businesses aren't set up like that, particularly service-based businesses or production businesses. I used to say at 7, hi Joe, that when you've got, Sunrise can't work from home. So, you know, you've got to be really careful on having blanket rules across everybody and making sure that there is flexibility. Real flexibility is going, I need to stay home because I've got plumbers coming in, or I've got another reason for needing to be at home, not being really strict, because flexibility also goes both ways. Being strict on I'm only going to come in 3 days a week is not flexible.
No.
So I think the more time in together, the better, but making sure that time's really strategic around creativity. If you want to stand still in your career, if you want to stand still as a business and not progress, not innovate, sure, stay at home and do it. But if you want to be able to make sure that you're, you know, at the leading edge of culture, of content, of, you know, you want to get that next promotion, you've got to turn up. You can't do it from behind a screen at your kitchen table, and I'll die on a hill on that because I have many arguments about it, but no one's been able to convince me otherwise yet.
No, and it seems like there's a lot of plumbers getting a lot of work at the moment too. You touched on that. It's like, wow, a lot of people got plumbing problems. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
I agree with all of that. So maybe give you a different perspective. I worry about the younger generation, to be honest. I think the impact of COVID, but the impact of not being in an office, of not having that social environment, of not having that engagement with, you know, not just your manager, but your peers. You've really, business, life, our media companies, what we do, it's all about people connection and connecting with people. We can be the smartest in the world, we can have the best AI, we can have the best technology, all that sort of stuff. But if you can't have a conversation with somebody, if you can't connect with them one-on-one, if you can't understand their problems or what's driving them or what the motivation factor is for them, or are they having a good day or a bad day, that's a basic human skill that I think is in danger of being lost over time. So that's something that does worry me in terms of future generations.
Yeah, and I mean,
Agree
you
with
touched
that.
on it before with the loneliness, particularly with young men that we're seeing across the world. Yeah. Okay, I don't have a clock in front of me, but I think we must be close to time. I inspired by Joanna, who spoke before. You are all what I would call business athletes. You're professional business athletes who, you know, are pretty...
I can type really quick. You should see me go.
You're pretty, you know, high performers. And, you know, as I touched on at the beginning, but you weren't here for it, is the industry's pretty tough and for an indie. And you get knocked down a bit, you got to keep getting up. You will have learnt as professional athletes and business athletes how to, you know, some resilience and tolerance. And, you know, Joanna shared a lot of that before. Is there any man or woman, person, living, dead, who has passed on something to you that has really helped with your, you know, resilience and fortitude to just keep getting up when things are tough?
Geez, I didn't expect that one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. When things are getting tough, I think there's a resilience you get as you go through, you know, especially corporate life, I suppose. You do, you know, you have to keep ploughing through. I think sticking very clearly to your values, I think, is really, really important. I think that's probably the thing that I would do is my own personal values, you know, when you're it. So I think from the agency's point of view, making sure you're clear on the values. I'm a great believer in values and purpose as an organisation. I think making sure the values and purpose, you come back to that often, whether, you know, whatever they are, as a thing. So I think that's one thing. The other thing, I mean, I think personally, which I do a lot, is, and I think it diffuses the situation, takes a lot of tension out and makes you move on very quickly, is just admit when you're wrong, and I'm often wrong. So I would just put my hand up and say, I've got that wrong, cocked up. And when people are trying to, what's happened, who's to blame, there's all that blame. I would put my hand up. I would do that as a business as well. We got that wrong. It diffuses situation. Yes, it's a bit, and then just move on quickly.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're an agency, I think there's super opportunities for people in the room here, especially working with us as local media players as well, working through the local side of the business, the quality, what the consumer really, really wants. Coming through is really great partnerships we can have. But I think values is probably the one thing I'd pull out, is making sure you stick with your values as an organisation or as a human as you drive through, and you're true to those. I think that gets you, takes you a long way through.
Great. North Star, values, and admitting when you're wrong. Love it. Thank you.
There's never one person, I think, who, there's always, you pick up pieces from a range of people who you connect with. But just a few things I've learnt along the way. When employing people, you want not just a good journalist and good editor, a good salesperson, you want a good person. And so key in our interviewing process is values, your personal values, your work ethic. You're not going to run out the door at 5, you're going to finish the job. You're going to look at what's next and not just be happy with what you've got, how you self-improve. So that's just one area that we'd particularly look at in terms of are we employing good people, not just good skills. I did learn from someone what I call the mirror test, is that we all have tough days, and you have to make tough decisions that you may not necessarily regret but wish you didn't have to make. And so going home at the end of the day, looking in the mirror and saying, that was tough, but did I do the right thing? Mm-hmm. And that's the self-evaluation I think you should do every day, and that you learn from that, and that's how I think you get better, but also you'll sleep easier at night, but get up the next day being able to do it again, having learnt from, and knowing that you've done the right thing, and if you haven't, you learn from it.
Great.
One thing that I learned when I was in Brisbane actually was this thing called a hot wash, right? And a hot wash is something that Defence Forces use when the air fighter jet flies in to an aircraft carrier. They wash it down straight away because it's easier to do when it's hot. And so what we do is when there's a big event or something, a big kind of thing that we've done as a business, even if the results are good or the results are bad, we sit down as a group and we share our learnings and go, what would we do differently next time? And so that has taught me a lot about trying to look back at, from a reflection perspective of how you take learnings, whether they're good or bad, into the future, and make sure you don't do it again. Because the thing is, there's always going to be mistakes. Everyone's human. Plus, we're relying on humans to make decisions that are based on previous data. You don't know what's coming. So I think what's really key is that when you are having those reflection moments when it's really bad and you're putting in new processes, also do it when it's good, because I think that will generate better ways of working and better ideas, better human connections as well from a team perspective. And there's nothing worse than when people turn on each other. I've certainly worked in my past with some cultures that weren't amazing and that it becomes really finger pointy. I can't deal with that. That's when I'm like, eject, I'm out. Because as a team, that's how you're going to generate incredible results. If you start blaming individuals, or you're saying, well, if that person hadn't have done that or that person had have done this, then we'd be in a different situation. That's yuck and that's awful, and no one wants to be in that position. So as leaders, you've got to make sure that that sort of culture never exists, because you're only going to go backwards.
Love it.
I'd have 2. Procrastination is probably something that I think we all need to avoid as much as possible, because none of us are hyper intelligent, none of us know the answers to everything, but make a decision, to Michael's point, with looking yourself in the mirror, and know that you've made that decision with the best knowledge that you had at that time, in the best interests of the individuals or the company, but make a decision, because procrastination is something that will I think would tear you apart. The other one that I like to think of, and it is a tough time for everybody, is the phrase, this too shall pass. and sometimes when you're in the mire of a big decision or something going on, it all feels all consuming. But actually, things do turn up and down. Things do come and go. And regardless of what's going on, there's an awful lot more people in a worse situation than any of us in this room around the world. And that's not to be forgotten.
100%, yeah. Great. Well, I think we're probably... Yep, we are over time. There you go. Was there anything else any of you would like to say? Do you feel like you...
Yeah, you should spend more money with local media. Thank you.
There you go. Good on you, Nat. Just want to thank this power panel for generously giving up their time today, and give them all a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.